Welcome to the 4 a.m. Club. Today we're going to be talking about The Dark Knight, more specifically his supervillains. As you can tell, I love The Dark Knight. I love Batman. He is the best. One of the most incredible heroes God ever created. I guess he was created by man. But in this video, we're going to be talking about Batman's top villains in a specific way. So a lot of rankings, they'll rank the top villains, heroes, or whatever. Sometimes I feel like, okay, if so-and-so didn't exist, does number 2 really deserve to be number 2? So I'm ranking this list as if the one before them doesn't exist. So like, for example, my number 1 is obviously the best villain. And then my number 2 is if that villain didn't exist, if that makes sense. Because I feel like a lot of times people rank things as like a specific order, depending on what they're 3 or 2 or 1, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm doing. If you can't tell, this is my Batman onesie. It even comes with a little hood, little ears. So sometimes when I get cold, this is what I sleep in. So literally just woke up from my pajamas and my hair, so we're gonna fix that, right? All right, so I couldn't find it within me to only do 10 because there's so many great Batman villains. So we're going to be doing 15. So I'll go through the 15. I'll go through the 5 bottom ones pretty quick. 15 is Hugo Strange. His intellect is his strength. One of my favorite episodes of Batman the Animated Series is where Hugo Strange gets the upper hand on Bruce Wayne. He's also the main I guess he's he's a huge part of Arkham City, which is probably the best Batman game ever made. Hugo Strange is great. Number 14 is Red Hood, which is actually Jason Todd. Now, if we were doing a top 5 favorite supervillains, he'd probably be in the top 5 for sure because he's one of my favorite. But in terms of strictly a villain, he's got to be at number 14. Number 13 is Killer Croc. Sometimes like Batman has to be more strategic when he's going against him. Coming in at number 13 is the Riddler, which the Riddler is kind of like Hugo Strange in a way. Like his strength is up here. And a lot of times it's Batman has to utilize his detective side. And at number 11 is Hush. So Hush is technically it's a newer villain. It's actually one of my favorite comics I've ever read is Batman Hush. It's amazing. It's actually got a lot of these characters in that comic. But just the idea of Bruce Wayne and Thomas Elliot used to be friends because Batman didn't have a lot of friends growing up. And now he is Hush, and there's been some different... Anyways, I won't drag that on. Getting into the top 10, number 10 is Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is one of the most interesting supervillains of all time. She definitely has a particular motive, and I think that's important because most of the time a good, compelling villain is only as good as their motivation of why they do what they do. A lot of times Poison Ivy does have some redeeming qualities, like in Batman Arkham Knight. She saved the whole city. Coming in at number 9 is Clayface. Now, the newer version of Clayface, where he's not the old serial killer one, but Clayface comes in at number 9. I think he's produced some of the most amazing episodes of Batman the Animated Series. He was also in Arkham City, amazing game. He's been a great villain, and it's always fun to have that twist of you never know who he is. He's also in Hush, the comic. Coming in at number 8, and it may be low for most of you, but if we're doing my favorite villains, he would probably be 1 or 2. It's Mr. Freeze. The reason why Mr. Freeze isn't higher up on the list is because he could care less about Batman, and his job is, or his goal, I should say, isn't to make Batman's life miserable. It's literally just to save his wife, and a lot of times he's just at odds with Batman because of the things he does to seek those resources. Number 7 is Scarecrow. Now, a lot of adaptations of Scarecrow has him this freaking weak little shrimp punk, and I love what they've been doing more recently with Scarecrow, that they've made him into this intimidating character who actually utilizes fear. Like, for example, in Batman Begins, he was in that movie, but he kind of shrunk at the end and really came across as more of a pawn. Anyways, I think Scarecrow, if given a little bit better stories, he can be scary. He can be intimidating. And so if the rest of these villains didn't exist, I could see Scarecrow being Batman's biggest villain. Coming in at number 6 isn't necessarily just a Batman villain, but he's more of a DC villain. It is Deathstroke. So Deathstroke, Slade, whatever you want to call him, Slade Wilson, he is more of a bounty hunter. He actually was the first Terminator, and he has some super good stories. I mean, he's also part of the Suicide Squad. However, the reason why he isn't higher on this list is because a lot of times he goes against other people and not just Batman. But if the rest of these villains didn't exist, I could see Deathstroke being Batman's greatest villain because of his strength, his fighting style, and I love how a lot of villains have either fighting styles or they have a scheme or they have intelligence. And so it's nice to have a variety of different Batman villains. Number 5 is the Penguin. Now, I'd be lying if Batman Returns didn't bump up this villain a lot because he is the main antagonist in a movie. It does give him a huge edge. How I could see him being Batman's biggest villain. Thing I will say, in the Arkham series, they didn't really do Penguin all that good. They kind of just made him this annoying like hench boss person who would just order other people around and then just get his butt kicked. What I like about some adaptations of Penguin is he can actually go toe-to-toe to Batman physically, and he has more of a plan. Coming in at number 4 is Two-Face Harvey Dent, right? So Harvey Dent is interesting because his motivation is basically just to prove that the justice system doesn't work because he used to be a detective or a lawyer in some adaptations. Two-Face is actually one of the main villains in my favorite comic. Absolutely my favorite comic of all time is Batman: The Long Halloween. Without a doubt, it's so good. However, if these other villains didn't exist, I could see people writing more compelling stories for making Two-Face Batman's main villain. Going into the top 3, number 3 is Bane. The reason why Bane is number 3 is, for one, he is strategic, he has a good intellect, and he is strong enough to give Batman one heck of a day. For example, if the top 2 didn't exist, I could totally see Bane being Batman's greatest villain. Coming in at number 2 is Ra's al Ghul, not Ra's al Ghul or whatever people call him. Ra's al Ghul is, in a lot of adaptations, is actually the one who trained Batman, and he is the leader of the Demon's Head, the League of Assassins, the League of Shadows, whatever people call it. Ra's al Ghul is an amazing, compelling villain, and his daughter and Batman have a thing going on, so that's cool. Speaking of things going on, I will just want to point out that Catwoman is not on this list because I don't necessarily consider her a Batman villain anymore. She's really just like, I don't know, like she's just not a villain, right? Because she's his love interest, let's be honest. And to no surprise, coming in at number 1 is the Joker and Harley Quinn. So I put them together because most of the time they work as a team. There are a couple episodes of Batman, the animated series, or other shows where Harley Quinn's solo. I honestly see her and Joker as 1A, 1B. I mean, it doesn't get more iconic than the Joker. He's so beloved that he literally has his own movie series. The reason why the Joker is so amazing is because he's such the opposite of Batman. And you pretty much have to be living under a rock to not know who the Joker is. And if you haven't read The Killing Joke, one of the best Joker comics of all time, probably the best, it's worth a read. It's a great, great comic. Just don't go watch the movie because that's trash. There you have it. Obviously, some of this is predictable. Those are my top Batman villains. If you made it this far in the video, you probably should like and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.